Hello, and welcome to Yam News. Recently on Yam TV, we have been talking a lot about gender and the order of God. Hello, and I just wanted to bring this video to you to tie up what we've been talking about this week in terms of the topic of men and women are not the same, and I wanted to start helping to connect the dots to all of the things that we've been addressing, not just this week, but over the last few years. Dwayne Wade's son, the basketball player, transitioning at the age of 12 into a girl. Now, if you cannot see the hypocrisy of that and understand there is a satanic agenda behind what is going on, then I don't know what world you live in, because at 12 years old, you cannot drink alcohol, you can't drive a car, there's many other things you're not allowed to do, but you're allowed to transition your gender. This is an attack on humanity. This is an attack on mankind. And if we cannot understand and connect the dots and see that the devil is trying to establish an antichrist order, he's trying to establish the beast system, and if we can't see that this is impacting even our very own homes, our lives, our churches, and have a right response, then I don't know what we're calling ourselves Christians in the church for. And so now we see transgenderism, even transhumanism. Now, if you look into Baphomet, this is the god of the LGBT movement, and various celebrities have demonstrated the allegiance to this god. This god, small g, is a goat with male and feminine body parts. A transhuman species. We can't even understand. The transgender is just part of it. There's a whole transhumanism thing coming. Now, I'm not going to get into Genesis 6 and the Book of Enoch, because many people have many opinions on that. But understand, as in the days of Noah, so shall it be before the coming of the Son of Man. Today we will bring to you a story from the BBC, which is quite surprising to us that a mainstream media outlet would publish this story. The story is about a 23-year-old woman who is taking legal action against the NHS gender clinic she says should have been challenged more by medical staff over her decision to transition to a male as a teenager. A judge gave the go-ahead for a full hearing of the case against the Tavistock and Portman NHS Trust. Lawyers will argue children cannot give informed consent to treatment delaying puberty or helping them to transition. The clinic, based in Hampstead, northwest London, which runs the UK's only gender identity development services, GIDS, added that it welcomed an examination of the evidence in this contentious area.
16, I started on puberty blockers, and I was on that for a year, and I continued with it for an extra year along with cross-sex hormones. And then I was on cross-sex hormones for about 4.5 years. During that time that I was on cross-sex hormones, I underwent a double mastectomy procedure where I had my breast removed, and that was the end of the process for me, and I came off of the hormones just last year. Yeah.
How tough is that process of change?
It is very difficult. I know initially I felt very relieved and very happy about things, but I think as the years go on, you start to feel less and less enthusiastic or even happy about it. It just depends how you want to live, really. You can either choose to continue with that sort of life and, you know, continue to dig yourself deeper into this hole, or you can choose to kind of, you know, come out of that and have the weight lifted off of your shoulders and just live, you know, naturally and how you are as truly. Yeah.
How old were you when you started to question your gender?
I was about 14, and things had kind of been bubbling under the surface for years, really, because I always kind of felt different from a very young age, and it wasn't, you know, very prominent until I reached kind of early teen years, you know, when I was 14, and that's when, you know, I think it was more of a problem that society had rather than I had with myself, looking back on it.
So if society had allowed you to dress as you wanted, be the person you wanted without judgment,
yeah,
you wouldn't have felt the pressure to change?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have felt the pressure, you know. There's no way of saying how I would have really felt if things were different, but, you know, looking back, I do feel like that would have been a big thing, and yeah, it wouldn't have made me feel so pressured.
And as a teenager, how strongly did you feel that need to change physically?
I didn't feel too strongly about it until I looked into how the process went with every case, and I kind of found out how that was through the internet. And yeah, it wasn't until I kind of visited my GP and I started in the process that I kind of built up the urgency to change. I just felt like each step I consistently felt the need to change more in order to feel better, because, you know, each step it didn't really make me feel better as I went along, looking back on it.
What do you think about that now?
I would have liked to have, you know, some sort of intensive therapy, really. I think that I should have been challenged on the proposals or you know, the claims that I was making for myself, and I think that would have made a big difference as well.
There will be young people who say going to the clinic literally saves their lives because it is essential someone listens to them and believes their need to change. What would you say to that?
Well, I did say the same thing, you know, years ago when I went to the clinic. It felt like, you know, it was saving me from, you know, suicidal ideation and just depression in general. And, you know, at the time I felt like it relieved all of those mental health conditions that I was, you know, struggling alongside, you know, gender dysphoria. It's something you need to kind of work through, but it's not something that should be rushed into.
What would you tell your 16-year-old self now?
That's a hard question. Because, I mean, I feel like I could say anything to my 16-year-old self, but, you know, I might not necessarily listen at that time, and that's kind of the point of this case, is that, you know, when you are that young, you don't really want to listen to anyone, and a lot of things won't get through. So I think it's up to these, you know, institutions like the Tavistock to step in and make children reconsider what they're saying. Because it is, you know, a life-altering path that you're going down, and it's not guaranteed to work.
Do you feel any anger about what's happened in the last 5-10 years for you?
I do, yeah. I feel angry that, you know, no one was there to really say any different, and I was allowed to run with this idea that I had, or, you know, almost like a fantasy as a teenager. I was allowed to run with that, and it has affected me in the long run as an adult. You know, I'm very young. I've only just kind of stepped into adulthood, and I have to, you know, deal with this kind of burden, or such a radical difference in comparison to others, at least.
So how do you want to identify now?
Just as a human, you know, being living in society. You know, I am accepting of my, you know, my sex, which is female, and I'm just taking each day as it comes, and I'm not trying to force other people's perceptions of me, and I'm not trying to force myself to feel any particular way about myself either. So I'm just happy to be doing something and turning the negatives that have happened in recent years into positives.